Well, hello and welcome. My name is Velma. You can connect with me at velmanolds.com. This is all about your leadership chat. What does that mean? You get to listen in on valuable insights from valuable leaders just like you. I want to encourage you to go ahead and subscribe so that you never miss another episode. And if this is of value to you, please share the nuggets that you're going to take away from all these great leaders. On the leadership chat today, I am just super excited to let you get a taste and introduce you to a good friend here, Kenn Edwards. So everybody, drums, listen up. Here's Kenn. Hey, Kenn,
Hey,
welcome.
thank you for inviting me to come and be part of the program today. It's really great and looking forward to it.
Okay, well, you are in for a treat. I mean, the listeners are in for a treat. You're in for a treat too, but first and foremost, I always think about the fact that in a virtual world, have we ever met? And so I've talked to different people on the leadership chat, and you are one of those individuals that we actually met in the skin. Can you believe it? So my first question out of the box is, Kenn, think about this for a minute. Can you share a story about someone that's a valuable leader? They could have been a valuable leader. They may still be a valuable leader in your life. Why would you say they're a valuable leader? What did they do?
Well, I've given that some thought. And the first person that pops off in my mind is my dad.
Okay.
Now, a lot of times you don't think of your dad as being a leader. You think of, some commander or some boss or some corporate executive. But really, it was my dad that laid the foundation in my life of the value of hard work.
Oh, okay.
My dad was raised on a farm in the Dakotas during the Great Depression. He lived in a one-room farmhouse raised by his grandmother, and they were very, very poor. At age 13, he actually left home and went out and started working on farms for other people for room and board so he could go to school.
Wow.
That, in turn, those values really shaped my life.
Mm-hmm.
He actually, when I was 13 years old, Mom and Dad finally scraped up enough money to be able to buy 40 acres and get their first farm. Dad always wanted to return to the farming lifestyle. So Mom and Dad both worked full time and then ran the farm and nights and weekends. We had crops, we had cattle. It was long days, long nights. At 13 years of age, I was so excited about driving tractors and having cattle that I didn't even worry about the work. Right. And I hung right by my side, learned how to do everything under the sun. And that really laid a foundation in my life to build my life on where hard work really pays off.
Yeah. Wow.
Then a couple of years later, I met a pastor.
Okay.
Actually, he was the pastor that married my wife and I. Uh-huh. And there, at this point in time, there was going a spiritual revival going through our family, and so my dad and I, particularly, would take and go visit this church. And then ultimately, I ended up attending there and met my wife. And Pastor Tony Scott, who is still a friend today, was a real mentor of faith. He introduced me to ministry. Okay. He basically laid a foundation of faith, and he really gave me the tools to know, to expect God, to believe, to see things actually happen, not just in words, but to have a vision and to see that vision fulfilled. It was amazing. And it really impacted my life as a young 21, 22-year-old man, right, to build my own life and my own ministry upon. Wow. So those would be two. Okay. And, as I think further down through the line, probably the next one would be about 15 years later, another pastor, Mike Chapman. Mike came into my life at a time where it was kind of a crossroads, a change. It was a period. My dad was going through a battle with cancer, and my ministry was changing. Pastor Mike is solid as a rock, still good friends today. but his ministry really taught me to think out of the box.
Okay.
Don't do things just the way because we've always done it, even though you may not have a lot of support from your peers or from your fellow pastors. In this case, try something, do something different within the confines of being biblical,
Right.
but try something different because the world is changing and ministry is changing. So those would be three of the top leaders that I would say that I've had during my life that really helped shape who Kenn Edwards is today.
Right. Okay. I was writing down because I love how you not only shared with us who, but you shared with us what they taught you. Like you said, a valuable leader in my life at the beginning, the early stages as a young guy on the, young kid just growing up, I learned the value of hard work. And so my dad instilled that in me. But sometimes when you think about work, it sounds like, oh, I can't believe I got to go to work. And the way you described it, or the way your dad helped instill that in you, was you were like, man, I'm so super excited to be riding a tractor. And, and it was hard, but it was also very rewarding in that it was fun. And so hard work being a foundational value has been something that you've built your life on. I love how you describe that. That was just priceless. I want to hear more about how you milk cows or something. I'm an island gal. I know nothing about farming, but so I'm in a mess. Then you shared about Pastor Tony, right?
Pastor Tony Scott, yes.
Yeah, Pastor Tony. And you said that his, besides the wonderful woman you married, so we'll park that right here, okay, because that's probably one of the greatest values you got in that. But he also laid down the value of faith. And that we share that. So for those of you listening in, if you are a person of faith, you are at home. And if you're not, we want to welcome you here anyway. And you just talked about the foundation of faith and how that played such a critical role in your life. And you even opened up paths on your leadership journey to ministry. Tell us a little bit about your leadership journey in ministry. I know a little bit about it, but I'm excited to hear how you would share that with us.
Well, actually, not too long after I worked with Pastor Scott, a few years later, we branched out into ministry ourselves, moved to a small town, worked in a local church as an associate pastor and working with the youth of the church. And it always amazed me how God would bring a mentor, and we're all supposed to either be a mentor or be a mentoree.
Yeah, it's that whole Paul and Timothy.
We all need to be learning from others, even at this age. I am looking for people who can sow and invest into my life.
Exactly.
When you think about leadership, there are times that you need a commander, you need a general, you need a sergeant, you need somebody that can shout orders at you. But in most places in life, leadership is about building the people that you work with, mentoring the people to grow, to mature into the men and women that you want to lead the organization that you're involved in.
Right.
And so I started out working in the local church and then moved and worked in a couple of international ministries and, had many different kinds of leaders down through the years. And but leadership is something I think that needs to be earned, not necessarily a appointed title or a position.
I love that.
So I think Jesus has even been our best example of servant leadership. Yep. And I think there's a lot to be learned about it. Yes, there are times where you need to be the general.
Exactly.
But by and large, we are to develop and mentor our staff. Yep. And that's the key point that I hope that all of us will remember in our walk, in our daily work.
Okay. And all right, great. I love that. I love the journey of faith, laying that foundation and where that value took you. And then the third valuable leader, you talked about Pastor Mike. And you said Pastor Mike, gave you a value of, thinking differently, thinking out of the box, using creativity, because the world is changing, challenge yourself to change the way you can get your message or even represent your leadership presence, to others. So share a little bit about how you would say you leverage that value of thinking outside the box.
Well, it's important that you think out of the box because all too often we get in our mindset in a rut.
Mm.
And so one example of being able to think out of the box was when I was working for an insurance company called General Insurance Underwriters. We handled the Church Mutual insurance product.
Mm.
And my boss, at that time, everything was basically, a 10 key,
Right.
it's all calculations.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, there's got to be an easier way to do this. And my boss, even though the office said, no, you want to keep doing the 10 key,
Right.
and my boss said, there probably is. Let's work on it.
Right.
And so I got a spreadsheet out and I started finding ways to do formulas.
Wow.
To get that to where I didn't have to sit there for 30 minutes at a 10 key.
Right.
I could go to a spreadsheet, put some number of things in, and it would calculate everything for me.
Okay.
And over about a year or so, we got a rough way of handling our calculations ourselves.
Yeah.
It wasn't to the exact penny, but it didn't have to be to the exact penny.
Mm-hmm.
But it was taking an experience that we were given
Mm-hmm.
and trying to improve upon it. Right. To make it more effective. And thinking out of the box really caused that to happen.
Yeah, no, and probably, and those that are listening, I mean, at 3M, Post-it notes came out of a different way of thinking, and it was the employees in the organization that were given the opportunity to just think differently, be creative. Well, how could we use these scrap pieces of paper, and it came up with Post-it notes, and I don't know about you, but I got them all over the place here. I'm a hot mess with my Post-it notes. Okay, well, great. I love that. People don't think outside the box. Well, that's kind of a cliche, but actually, we do, like you say, we get inside this compartment and we're like, it's a safe zone sometimes, or, hey, don't rock the boat. That's another saying, if it's working, don't try to improve, but there's always ways that you can improve, and personally as well. So grow and invest, like you talked about with mentorship. Okay, let me ask my second question, Kenn. So we've talked about how, there's valuable leaders in your life, and you've given us like, 3 great solid ones, Dad, Pastor Tony, and Pastor Mike. Now, I want to put the other side of that scale here and say, okay, Kenn, you've learned and you've talked a lot about the power of mentorship and investing in people, and that's what leaders are designed to do. So as a valuable leader yourself in your career and your journey, how would you say you are impacting others as a valuable leader?
Well, I hope to instill within people the need or the desire or the want and desire to create a lasting legacy. So much in the corporate world, it's all about this deadline, this quarter, getting the next project done, that we sometimes get so in the moment, we don't think about how we're affecting future generations.
Sure.
That starts with our family, as well as people that coworkers, and even those that, might come into our life at some point in the future. Yeah. So I'm at a point in my life. I retired last year. I'm working part-time now for another ministry. Thank you. Yeah. And so no such thing as sitting down for this guy.
No.
And so, but I hope people will think long-term.
Okay.
What am I doing today?
Yeah.
And how will that be reflected 20, 25 years from now? See, as an older man, I look back at some of the people that God has brought into our life over the years. And one of the things that's neat about Facebook now, although I don't spend nearly as much time there, probably too much now, but than I should, but I've been able to stay in contact with people that served together, 25, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
People that have sat in our Bible studies, people that attended the churches where we were at, people that we've affected, had some influence in their life at one way, time or another, and to see how they've grown, how they have developed and flourished themselves.
Right.
It's extremely important. So from this day forward, going forward, what are we doing today that's going to shape the next generation? How will our life impact the world to come? And what will people remember about us? And for me, I want that as a Christian, for people to know that it's the power of Christ that flows through me. Yes. That Kenn Edwards, I and myself am nothing, but through Christ, God can do great things. Yes. And so my goal is to help people think of long-term and protect their family, and, provide for God's kingdom.
Wow. Okay. No, that's beautiful. And, I love the word legacy because it talks about you're at a place in life where you're like, it's not about me. It's not about my success. It's about how I am providing significance for those that are here today and those for future generations. And that's one of the things that, I've been encouraged by others to do these videos, because I haven't been doing these videos. If you've been following me, you know that, and Kenn knows the secret why. You'll have to reach out to Kenn to find out. I want to leave a message that inspires and encourages others to be able to live their best life. So I love that that ties into legacy, and you're tying the legacy on the foundation that you have been mentored and you've grown up on, which is your faith. So a very powerful way to come full circle and give back. So Kenn, tell us, so for those that are listening, what's one big takeaway? I really want you to think about this. We just talked about legacy. You talked about impacting and mentoring. For those that are listening to you, what's one big takeaway that you would want to say to them and have our listeners, be encouraged to apply to their life so they could be more of a valuable leader? What's that big takeaway?
I would say invest in people. Live in a way that people want to follow you as a leader. Yeah. Not that they have to, but because they believe in the vision, they believe in the purpose, they believe in the cause so much that they want to follow you and be part of winning a great success. That's what makes an important leader, is investing in people and being a leader that will change the world. Wow. So you guys heard it here. You need to invest in others. And, this is what Kenn is doing in his focus on legacy. This is why he's here. I twisted his arm to come on and share with us. And he's like, what do you want me to say? And you should all know that it's not like we scripted this beforehand type of thing. He, did know that I was going to talk about being a valuable leader and how that impacts your life, but he didn't know exactly how I was going to dig a little deeper. And I want to thank you, Kenn, for allowing me to go there and for being open and sharing, transparent, and have a little fun with me. Yes. It's been great.
And giving some value. So now for those that are listening and want to say, okay, so how do I get to know Kenn? How do I follow Kenn? How do I connect with him? How can someone reach out to you or connect or follow you in your work?
Well, in these days, all you got to do is Google.
Just ask Google.
Yeah. So my name is Kenn with 2 N's. And so there are several of those out there, Kenn with 2 N's, but you can actually find my website, footprintforgod.com. Okay. Footprintforgod.com, or you can Google Kenn Edwards. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on LinkedIn and a couple of other platforms. But my website is really the place that has the information about my book and my teaching skills and some of the things that God allows me to do.
Okay, excellent. So Footprint for God, I went out there.com, so you could check that out and you can connect with Kenn and learn more about his book, learn more about his ministry and what he's doing, and take some valuable insight and tips from Kenn for your life as well. So the one he's given away today just for you is to invest in people, and what a powerful one. Hey, thanks so much for watching another episode of Your Leadership Chat. I hope that you've enjoyed this video. Make sure that you hit the subscribe button here and tap that bell icon so that you never miss another episode. I hope too that you'll give us a thumbs up on the video for a like. And then if you feel led, please share the video with those who need to see it. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time on Your Leadership Chat. Bye for now.